Welcome to this episode of the Strong Kind podcast. This episode is with Hector Wang. Hector Wang is a fellow physio. You can follow him at hector.wangphysio on Instagram. That's where I found Hector. Me and him bonded over a lot of really good topics around training and rehab. We also talked about Hector's past and his just development as a thinker, and ultimately how that's helped him become a good PT. I really enjoyed this conversation with Hector. We talked a lot about physics and actually using like science in rehab. And it was just a great discussion. So if you're interested in that, if you're a PT student, if you're currently a PT, I think it's going to be really, really meaningful for you. We also just got into, topics that we find where people kind of BS others, and it's also interesting conversations oriented around those things. So thanks so much for being here. I appreciate Hector so much for coming on. Again, you can follow Hector on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at dr.dave.strengthandkindness. And we're both physios. We both do some form of remote or virtual coaching and rehab. So if you need help with an injury or if you have questions, please reach out to either myself or Hector or both on Instagram. Again, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you. Peace. All right, Hector. Thanks for being on the podcast, my friend. I already butchered Hector's given name a couple times. I might take another stab at it here a little bit. And then I was just talking to Hector about his background, and so he just mentioned that he just moved to San Diego. He was in Boston for 10 years of his life. Him and his wife just moved to San Diego. Say where you were from say where you're from in China again, Hector.
So I'm from the town in southwest China. The town's called Kunming. The province is called Yunnan. We're border with Southeast Asia, Tibet, and pretty much nestled into rainforest. It's spring all year round. It's a beautiful place. It's gorgeous, gorgeous place. Good food, good fruits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What brought you to the States?
Honestly, bro, college, Chinese education system just got too intense at some point. When I was in 10th, 11th grade, that's the time I started realizing if I want to actually get into college in China, it would mean I have to spend quite literally 90 plus hours a week to study. And at the time I was training Muay Thai. I was doing sports. I was working out, and just something I didn't want to give up. And I had I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to come to the States. And so I pretty much didn't go through full high school. I got a equivalent of a GED in China, and then took English exam, took SAT. Then BU is the best school that accepted me. I didn't really know what I signed up for until I got there. I'm grateful I went there. Great school. I loved the city. I just loved the people.
Yeah.
Absolutely could not tolerate the weather.
Man, I mean, it's okay. First and foremost, just the idea of, dude, I did not prepare. I did not prepare for college whatsoever as a high school kid. But to think about being a 90-hour a week work week commitment type of thing is just mind-boggling to me. But yeah, man, I think it's also funny that you just mentioned you didn't know what you're getting into, because so much of life is just actually not knowing what the hell you're actually getting into, but taking the jump, right?
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that. Boston's a super cool town, but yeah, man, the winters in the Northeast. I live in Iowa, which is central, and it's, dude, you have to become a hardier human. Not hardier, I guess hardier is a good way to say it. Dude, winter sucks. There's 6 months of the year where the sun is not out. It's colder. Yeah. So if you came from a rainforest-esque or climate that was spring, eternal spring, it'd be rough, dude. Seasonal depression would hit you, right?
It is. I appreciate my times in Boston. I had a lot of good memories, and I think towards the later year I started to appreciate snow and winter.
Yeah.
And just the cycle of seasons a little bit more. But then it's also at the same time we visit my in-laws every Christmas and in San Diego, and we just did not want to leave.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just very, and truthfully, it come down to the point where, I mean, the weather is one thing. It's more so just we're at the kind of time of our life we want to be closer with family, um, and unfortunately, Boston is just way too far.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I mean, like, I was literally talking with a friend this morning, and it's like, like, it doesn't mean it's easy, but like, never before in history could like the average human almost like decide where they could live, and it's almost like you
Yeah,
have to pick a spot, right? Now, maybe
yeah,
like anymore, maybe you don't have to pick a spot, but like, it wasn't just that you were tied to this work, this location for the rest of your life type of thing. Like me and my wife go back and forth, like, why do we live in Iowa? Well, my family's close. Her family is not that far away. But like, dude, we love like Arizona. We love
yeah.
California. Really, it just comes down to like, California is awesome. It's just expensive as hell, right? Like,
It is.
but also, who cares if you can be outside and on the beach and X, Y, Z, right? So, um, it's just there's always pros and cons to all this stuff. So why did you choose to go and become a physio? Like, what made you be like, yeah, I want to do physical therapy. I want to talk about strength and conditioning. What led you on that path?
Truthfully, I think I, f- I fell in love with physio. I fell in love with like the 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 concept PT, the concept of strength conditioning after I got into PT school. Um, the reason I got in PT school, it's kind of dumb. Like all my friends are in PT school. I got in as a health science major to BU, and we had this accelerated 3+3 program. To
Mm,
you commit in high school, you go straight through with a DPT degree,
yeah,
and all my friends are in that program. I thought they're really cool. I want to hang out with them all the time,
yeah,
and it was really competitive to get in if you didn't sign in the beginning, and so it becomes like a goal I was chasing for the first 3 years of my college, just trying to get into the program, um, and then it happened. I'm like one of the only person in the past 10 years who transferred like halfway into the BU DPT program,
mm,
purely because I'm lucky. But then I got in, and then yeah, then like it's funny. I know the we have we have quite a few like mutual connections.
yeah,
Clinical athlete,
yeah,
um, Zach Gabor, shout out Zach Gabor. He at the time he was practicing in Boston, in a clinic, and I saw him. I listened to his podcast. I reached out, and he let me basically intern at the clinic for 1 day a week for entire semester. And along the way, he kind of just introduced me to what good PT and good strength conditioning is like. And
yeah,
that's probably the first time I really fell in love with what I did,
yeah,
way more than the education I got at school.
yeah, dude. I look back and it's like, okay, school was cool, but school was just like learning, and it wasn't application in the ways that I wanted to apply things, right? And like, I also honestly that kind of think, dude, like a lot of outpatient PT was just kind of like bullshit to me. Like, it was
Yeah,
like come put people on modalities. Like it's become this kind of machine. Like it's like a relief machine, right? Like, oh,
it is
we're gonna
relief machines.
and
Yeah.
what like I honestly felt I enjoyed more inpatient PT or rehab, like skilled rehab PT, because it was like this is work. This is fun, and
Yeah.
this is people reconditioning themselves, right? But I also just like I had before PT school I was like a trainer and I did CrossFit. I was a trainer, and it's like even though like CrossFit, like like we can talk more about this, but it just exposed me to working hard, which I think is
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
right? And I
Good.
also
Yeah.
exposed me to the fact that like, dude, a lot of shit can work. Like now
Yeah.
the structure and how you're maybe applying it depends on your goals, but PT school was like great education, but like
Uh-huh.
it's always this gap between the education and the application that was like frustrating to me, right? And
It
so
is.
when you said like Zach exposed you to what like good physio, good strength and conditioning is, like what do you mean? Like what were the things that like started to click or started to? I always think like for somebody like you, it's like that there's a good way to do things, but you have to like
Right.
almost like you gotta, and you like you probably already were to some extent, but like the setting that you're in is either conducive to that or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. It was an interesting time. I was going through my first clinical rotation. So first time ever, I'm actually like seeing how interactions of, you know, PTs and patients happening in real life. And I was also lifting pretty hard at the time, and I would just hear like at this, you know, my first clinical rotation, I would just constantly hear things that are just not aligned with what I see every single day in the gym. You know, like
Yeah.
you said, for people that are working hard, right? Just like there's a lot of things that in the PT clinic, I was told, oh, this is a safer way to exercise. This is like, you know, that's like injury conducive, and this is not. This is why you have pain because this is wrong. And I go to the gym, I just don't see those things at all. Like I really try hard to see it, I just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hanging out with Zach, and then on the contrary, he sees people, he was seeing people that was working hard on the baseline, and the intervention made sense. Like it is the first time for me to actually think about, some of the things where, you know, I remember there's one time where we're rehabbing like a guy with shoulder pain was bench and just going through his like rehab routine before on, you know, doing some of the banded shoulder work. And I remember hearing about it and saw to myself, I was like, okay, that sounds reasonable. You know, that's what I was learning in school. I was, you know, getting tested on those like exact same, you know, like banded rotation positions and whatnot. And then Zach just asked a question. He just asked a question and said, dude, like you're benching like over 2 plates. What do you think a 5-pound resistance band is gonna actually do to your tissue? And that's the first time I think I had a realization of stimulus behind the exercise. And then soon after that, it was I while I was in my second rotation, Zach recommended me to go through a online course, Slop to Loading by Scott Morrison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just blew my mind, and I just never the same after that. It's such, it just.
That
I'm
course,
really happy that I discovered Zach course. It's such a mind blowing thing when I first got introduced to it.
dude. Scott Morrison, Eric Mira, like, what's hard, and I think this is why. Well, okay, you've been doing Muay Thai for how long?
Oh, my first amateur fight was 2017. So
Okay. So like, let's say even before that, maybe a year or two,
Yeah.
probably. Like, so that's
yeah,
12 or 13 years, right?
yeah,
Like the thing about like training is like it's kind of like cooking. Like everybody can do it,
Yeah.
but everybody has an opinion on it, and then there's like preferences, right? But there's still
Yes.
there's still chemistry involved, in physics involved in like cooking, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a recipe, and whether or not you got to learn how to manage some of these things. And like the funny thing about people aren't scaring other people online about like cooking per se, maybe
Right.
but like, so, and I posted on this yesterday, like it was just me shooting my bow, and it's like there's some poor SOB who doesn't know about like some of these things, and it's like because like that's what school could almost be, and that's what a lot of like content online. It's just like a mind virus. Like, dude, right now, like
Yeah.
honestly, my like hips are a little beat up, and a lot of it is honestly, I think, just like cognitive stress. Like your cognitive stress affects you physically, and I think some of it
Yeah.
is just like I'm a little bit more stressed out for good reasons, but like my body is a little pissed off, and like what do I still
Yeah.
need to do? I still need to like keep squatting in ways that I can, try to load myself appropriately, and like let it calm down. And, like Greg Lehman, like calm things down, build things up, right? Like super simple. Like what
Yeah.
does that mean? But there's a lot to it. But like I think what's hard in our profession, and what's hard in even strength and conditioning, is like there's so many things that you can do. It's like, what do we figure out, and how do we help people like do the stuff that actually is going to move the needle forward for them, right? and I'm just like ranting here, but like I think some of it is when I look at your content and you're like physics oriented,
Yeah.
physiology oriented, like why do those things matter to help people actually make like meaningful progress in this stuff?
Oh man, I think on a personal like philosophy level, I always care about what's real and what's true, and I ask a lot of questions about what's real and what's true, and I try to really go through my thought process of why I think something is real and it's true. And it just, when you start asking enough questions, what's real and what's true, it's a, I mean, I get it's kind of, when I talk about it, it's kind of abstract right now, but when you just talk about like, anything PT training related, like I was with I was watching someone's story of this another PT. He was like doing ask me anything, and someone asked, "Oh, when I train Muay Thai, my back hurts. Why is that?" And he was giving me answer. He was giving me answer. Said, "Oh, it could be, your hip mobility. It could be your kicking technique. It could be all those things." And I just keep asking. I remember asking myself in my head, like, why? Like, why is hip mobility going to lead to back pain? Like, why is a kicking technique going to lead to back pain? You got to actually give me a reason. Like, you can't just say, like, oh, it's because you're scapular mechanic. That's why you have shoulder pain. It's like, why? There's such a big jump in there. And to me, physics is just such a objective thing we can all agree on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, we don't have to agree on whether this mechanic matter, whether like the up the strain, down the strain matter, but we can all agree on interacting with the world require force output, right? Whether I'm just sitting upright, I'm just holding my head upright, I'm walking down the stairs, I'm sprinting. We can all agree on there is a level of force that's involved, and we can all agree on, if you are familiar with physical stress theory, envelope of function, we can all agree on that if that force exceeds your body's capacity, something is bound to happen. And the way we can actually quantify it and actually objectify those things is just by physics. It just literally just look at, okay, what is the moment arm of my knee in this movement, and what is direction force in this movement, and does this exceed your body's capacity? I think it's just something we can all agree on. Because I think it's easy to get onto the camp of like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong, my theory is better than your theory, and then just get into those fights where everyone has some nuggets of truths. And I'm just kind of sick and tired of that. I think I really gravitate towards physics, because like Newtonian physics is really like not something you can argue with. It just objectively it's like real and true. We can say all those other things matter, and that's fine. I don't have to argue with you on whether pelvic floor has to react, how you want to brace, all those things. That's all okay. It's not where I want to have the conversation. I just want to have the conversation of like, okay, we can all agree on this like baseline thing, like the physics really matter here. And then if I can demonstrate in so many of those cases where people have pain or have some sort of functional limitation, we can explain that just by drawing a direct correlation to physics, to the amount of torque experience, amount of force experience, direction of force experience. And we really don't have to go anywhere else. And I think it's one of those things that I just want to focus on what we can all agree on. And hopefully, if we can agree on more things, would argue less.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just in my head, but
I feel like we're not gonna stop arguments for the sake of like arguments, because like me and you were both. I commented on like Chris Higgins. I can't remember how he says his name. But he posted a few weeks ago on like on the envelope of function and physical stress theory, right? And and then you like, so like the biopsychosocial model, right, is also like kind of a foundational lens. It's essentially like humans are physical cognitive, emotional creatures, but we're also like we're inside of like society, right? Like
Right.
and our relationship to like, you know, if you hurt your hip and you're not doing Muay Thai and it really doesn't affect like your life, you know, from an identity standpoint, you know, you're probably going to work through that injury in a different way. But like if you're into Muay Thai and it's like literally your hip stops you from performing the way you want, right? It's going to change like some aspects of your treatment, right? And maybe even your physiologic response, right? Because like there's elements of this that are tricky. But at the end of the day too, like we have to manage the load on the hip and maybe on you as a human organism, right? Which is kind of what I was alluding to myself. It's like I still have to manage my hip pain, like right. I'm not just saying that it's like because like if I just keep going in there and doing stuff to piss off my hips over and over again, like, and I don't respect kind of that there's this bandwidth that I have to work in to like feel good, or there's things that I should do to stress myself appropriately, it's probably not going to work out very well, right? But there's also just these like factors that like what people do, and me and you I think agree on this, is like people make up their new language for shit, and then they use that new language to like get other people to basically like what me and you are agreeing on is like pretty much it's like we should be looking at the leverages that, you know, are like moments and forces and like levers that people are utilizing to create movement, the ground reaction forces, the forces that like we can try to understand and manipulate, and the rest of the stuff is like just kind of people making up ways to scare people. Like this is my thing, and I don't want to get too much into it, but like I see people posting on like posture PRI type of stuff, and it's like you're just fucking throwing in like new languages and new ways to like manipulate the system that like frankly I just don't think are that meaningful, right? And you're also like you're like trying to be preventative with people's system when it's like you just have to like test and retest, right? Like that's what I think so much of this stuff boils down to. Like yeah, maybe people with like a different infrasternal angles should do different variations of an exercise, but also like I don't freaking know that that's true. Like you know, there's always exceptions to this stuff, right?
Yeah, man. I have just so many thoughts about what you said just now. I'm gonna try to see if I can pick all those up. I think there's so many points worth to double click about the PRI stuff. I think a lot of times what a lot of people don't understand is you can have an effective approach on outcome and absolute garbage explanation.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like one big example about PRI, like which like really grinds my gear is a lot of the managements are fairly good, but they'll give you a language that doesn't. They'll give you a language and reasoning that doesn't make any sense. For example, there is this video I remember like people doing a, you know, like a posterior hip capsule stretch. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of like a kneeling position, like to free hip internal rotation range of motion. Like a lot of PRI guys post about it on like you know, different sort of like kickstand, hinge variation, different sort of like floor stretches, trying to free up hip IR, internal rotation, and like the explanation they give, right, is super complicated. Here's where the capsule is, it moves forward and moves backward, and all those things. And then you look at the actual intervention, it's quite literally what they're doing is just a close chain internal rotation. Like the femur is right here, they just move the pelvis on top of the femur. It's like we don't need to explain anything besides anatomy if you just doing a little bit more IR now. Like I don't need to know how, you know, like theorize how the femur head is like moving all around in a joint capsule. And it is so weird to me that is something this simple can be dressed up so fancy when the nature of it is just not
making stuff complex to like get people to like go deeper down rabbit holes, right? And it's like and it's like the hard part is like now the awesome part is there's so much access to information. Like, you know, even like, dude, I watch your content and I'm like, yeah, that's like I like how this guy thinks, and I'm learning from him and I'm thinking it through and XYZ. But it also goes the other way where I'm like, I'll see something that it's like, I mean, so many people like, I mean, I follow like women PTs, and they're all women fixing rib flare, and it's like, I get that the orientation of the rib cage in the pelvis is something that, like, yeah, you should probably learn to navigate it, but like, this is like not that big of a freaking problem for like a lot of people. Right. And if it is because of, I think a lot of it people associate it with just pelvic floor things, which again, we can, like, man, my wife is a pelvic floor physical therapist. My wife's a physical therapist, and she primarily helps people with pre and postnatal things. And it's like, a lot of it, dude, is she's just helping people slowly return to activity. Yes, navigating like their trunk and stability and, like, you know, just feeling confident. And she does kind of talk people through like relaxation of the pelvic floor and just like what that even means. And honestly, a lot of it's like how to relax your body, which people suck at. Which is, it's not that hard. It's just like permission to some extent, right? Right. It's just graded exposure. Like, it's like, all right, like, you know, let's and also, like, dude, I don't know how much you deal with this in like Muay Thai or with people, but it's like, you know, when you hit a threshold and unfortunately you're like a woman, not unfortunately, sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way. When you're a woman and you have a short urethra and you have like basically your bladder full with urine and you have to manage compression and you're lifting really heavy, you're gonna leak fluid, unfortunately, at the top of your threshold. Yes, we can do a better job of coordinating and managing that, but it's still like, hey, when you're lifting 100% of your 1 rep max, your technique is gonna deviate, right? Like, because you're literally figuring out how to 100%. Move, right? So it's just these interesting things that people basically make problems of, and they make very complicated because complex stuff kind of sells, right?
Yeah, and it's tough. I think any industry that work with people are just gonna be full of noises like this. I think about, like, you know, psychology. I think about nutrition. I think about anything, you know, like obviously fitness and rehab. Anything has to do with human being. I think it's just gonna be a little bit messy. I think inherently our brains are just biased towards, you know, the more certainty. Our brain is just lazy in some ways that don't like to think, and we gravitate towards like things a little bit more appetizing, a little bit less complex. You know, I do see it as like a feature of being a human being, and yeah, it's what it is. I don't want to sound too hypocritical and be like, oh, those people, like, they don't think, they don't really have critical thinking. But no, I think
they think a lot, dude.
And truthfully, I just think it's just hard. It's just really hard. People, like you said, A, having too much information, and B, not knowing the correct information, and C, is just like human body is such a messy thing. So many interactions that all happen, and it's very hard to be a informed consumer of whether informed consumer or a informed patient. Because like I can go buy a phone, I can look up, what's a RAM, what's a camera, what's a battery life. But when you look up, it's like, oh, I need a good PT. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to like really sift out what's a good PT. And when you have a very unique problem that someone market towards, just, I'm very good at solving specifically your problem right to this population, right at this, you kind of have to take as what it is, if you're not in this sphere. And it's just, I think it's great opportunity for people to really be predatory. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's ever gonna stop. Yeah, man.
I think you just about this, yeah. If you're like, because I mean, you're rehabbing people locally, remotely. Like, a lot of it is just, let's say if you want to build a business, like, you have to be willing to put your ideas out there, right? And be like vulnerable to criticism, right? And that's okay. But like, I get people that they just see my content enough, and like I'm getting people locally that they come kind of through traditional like referrals and like some form of local marketing. But you touched on it earlier. Like a lot of things can work, right? It's just like
Yeah.
why they work, and what's our goal? Because like frankly, like getting out of pain, like I know that like my hips are gonna feel better if I just unload the shit out of myself for like a week. Like
Right,
they're gonna
right.
not, or like a month, probably a little bit longer. My problem is that I don't want to do that, and I want to,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
can keep doing stuff, right? And it's the same thing like if people want to do Muay Thai. It's like people are like their own kind of worst enemies. It's like
They are.
I
They
mean,
are.
so many of my clients, like really what I'm helping them do is just manage their overarching workload and be nice to themselves. Like so when they like literally like I have like 5 or 6 people like, hey, you need to keep doing 3 days a week of like training, but like we need to back off like for a little bit here. Like it's okay.
Right.
Like it's okay to take a little bit of a step back and let your body and your mind recover. People just hate that shit, right? Because
Yeah.
doing the thing they want to do is like if they work a 40-hour a week job or whatever, they want to go to the gym and they want to push hard so that they feel something different, right? Or that
Right.
they want to go run hard so that they feel good about running hard, right?
Yeah. I have like I think there are two ways to approach. Like when I think about this, I think about like from top down. It is really just about a lot of what I do is manage workload and trying to say this loads your hip a lot, this loads your ankle a lot, this loads this a lot. Let's tune that down. I do think there is part of the expertise, and this is where I think understanding of anatomy, understanding of physics really comes into play, because you can then point to the other sides and say this one ABC variation of exercises we can load super hard. You're gonna be
Yeah.
okay. You're gonna be
Yeah.
completely fine, and you can still like in some way train hard with those, you know, um, ankle weights on and I think that's be able to manage the details of that. It's what's really really fun to me, because you can really do crazy stuff. Like people, I think PTs are trying to be conservative, right? Like do no harm. It's like
Hmm.
we're medical providers, and that's like a big thing. And I think so many people get so overly conservative.
Yeah.
I remember, so I tore my PCL on my left knee a couple years back, and
Hmm.
I remember, immediately had a posterior drawer sign, and I don't have knee bend more than 90 degree, and I remember being injured on Monday. I remember hitting a 90% box squats, a high box squat on Tuesday. And
Hmm.
that there's so many things I could not do, but I didn't skip a single training day. I like once you know exactly what to pull back on, what to like not
Yeah.
change. I think you could like people sometimes just need a little bit of guidance. Like you can train really really hard with just like some very small modification, and then there's some things like we just are not gonna touch for the next 6 months. Like
Yeah.
I didn't give my full knee bend back for literally 6 months. But I was power clean like every other day for 6 months straight, because I had so much energy to burn.
Yeah.
And I think like the value of like physics, the value of really have a detailed understanding of biomechanics should be this empowering thing that because you're injured we can't do anything. It's like just because you're hurt an aspect of your hip, aspect of your knee, aspect of your ankle doesn't mean the joint is disconnected. Doesn't mean you can't put force through it
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
all. There's just like good amount of things you can still do, and
Yeah.
probably still like satisfy other needs and reasons for you to be training and working out.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah.
well, I'm pretty sure it's just that like back squats are pissing my like, dude. I like so 2 years ago I tweaked my groin sprinting. Like I literally went to the field and freaking pulled my groin. I'm like like it's classic. I was 35, now I'm 37, and like my groin finally feels good, but I couldn't like I going in and out of the bottom of like a heavy squat like just
Right.
kept pissing off the groin. And then that finally got good, and then I rolled my ankle really bad playing basketball, and like that took basically like 8 months of like I can't squat deep type of stuff, and it feels pretty good now, but then there's just like shit that like reintroducing my body to. Like, you got to be a little bit more patient, right? But like also like I can go still front squat. It's so like
Yeah.
I can still go do something. I could box squat heavy. I could single leg heavy, right? Like,
Right.
it's just like the thing that you were wanting to do because you want to make some progress at it again. Sometimes you just have to be okay with like that's not the thing. And then I see this a lot with like my powerlifting clients. It's like
Right.
you like, yes, specificity is your the thing, but like this giant general base of like getting more power, getting more like explosive, like just being kind of more of an athlete is like the phase some of those people don't want to go through because they want to keep competing or XYZ, right? um
Yeah.
and then it's also just like manipulating. How do we so like give me the things that like have helped you build this understanding of physics, that like maybe we didn't get exposed to as much. Like, we had to take physics to get into PT school, right? But we didn't then
Right.
do like super hard biomechanic oriented physics again, right? We did like kines, and we talked
Yeah.
about like leverages and leverage moment arms and stuff, but it wasn't until I really read like starting strength and like invigorated
Yeah.
my like
Very
the
cool.
moment arm model, that I started to really
Yeah.
start to think more about like just manipulating the load, manipulating what we're doing when we're doing some of these things, right? But like, what's helped you?
Um, I mean, I think, to be honest, the first thing that really helped me, I'm such a science oriented guy.
Yeah.
Like, coming from China, I had a really strong science background. Like, physics was my forte. We had to start taking physics from 8th grade,
Yeah.
and
Earlier than that.
from
Yeah,
from
college. Yeah.
from 8th to 10th grade, I pretty much just went through like physics 1 and 2 that I later took at BU. So I'm very familiar with that. And to be honest, like I get DMs all the time, and I think about that question. People ask me like, they really like the way I think. How do I come to the way I think? And I always point them towards Dan Cleater's book Force. The Force series. I just love those books so much. But truthfully, I think what really helped me, it's just trying to really be curious with Force in my day to day, in my training, in my working with clients. And I cannot tell you how many free body diagram I've drawn on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
There's a period of time I was probably doing that like 5 to 8 times a day, just trying to figure out Force. And I think a lot of it come from, I had a really good clinic when I was in Boston. We're all clinical athlete providers, and we're all very like-minded. We're all like really all nerding out about physics. And remember like one of the big revelation will come down to is, we talk about envelope of function, we talk about physical stress in such a global scale, in the sense it's like, deload the hip or like deload the body, but also in like a very micro scale, we apply to some things but not all the things. Like right, we apply like physical stress area to tendon management. I feel tendon management is something that's a little more, everyone can kind of agree on. You need to load it. Everyone can kind of agree on you need to load it progressively over time. At least I hope. But we don't really have that model for say, bones, for ligaments, for literally anything else. Even I think about brain or nervous system as something you can progressively load through physical stress theory.
Yeah.
And I just think about all those studies, that show, ACL hypertrophy after, season soccer game.
Yeah.
Shown, the GOSPT article on how recreational runner has thicker cartilage than non-runners.
Yeah.
And I think all those studies show like human is the adaptation machine.
Yeah.
We adapt to the stress we're given. And when we talk about like adapt to stress, like what do you mean by stress? I think that's where all the physics come in. That's where I trying to identify what exactly is a force, what's the direction force, how it's going to actually load our joint. And I think like to a point, I think after a couple months, really start to like just literally draw tons of free body diagram, and I'll play with a lot of like jumping. I'll look at impulse momentum. I will like use my phone camera to track things down and then try to run a calculation myself. I think just a lot of like playing, experimenting really helped me. You get to a point where, like, I look at a movement, the things I can see, I can visualize a ground reaction force, I can visualize external force acting in human body. Then you really get to a point where I just naturally not stop asking other questions. It just, by the time I solve the force deficits, I'm like pretty much done with rehab. And it was never like a conscious process for me to, I'm gonna not rely on, mechanic. I'm not gonna rely on, other things. I'm not gonna rely on some of the other like more I don't want to say woo, but like more tertiary other methods. It's just that when you're really good about physics, when you're really good at managing force, it tend to really be the 80% of rehab.
Yeah. You're saying like if you measure that there's a force production deficit at the site of at the site of an injury or at the person, like let's say even just like somebody because like we shouldn't. I am somebody that I do think like the psychosocial aspects of pain are very interesting to me because you also just see there's the evidence pointing towards when people are under like significant life stressors, their risk of injury increases, right? Like, right. And so it's like, all right, so how do we manage some of those things? But at the end of the day, too, like, if somebody is a soccer player and their left knee, like, there is a strength deficit from their left knee and their right knee significantly, like in extension, like, there is this like, if we bring up that deficit, and if like also like how strong do they need to be. Probably both sides can, like hit some level of, like, this is where a little bit of the coaching and like the clinical eye kind of comes in. But like, if they just like, if you have them do like, let's say a knee extension and like, yeah, they're like, their left side is objectively weaker on knee extension than the right side, right? But you also have them do a squat and like objectively, it like, they just don't know how to do it. Like, it doesn't look good. It's like Dan Cleather does talk about like almost the like the qualitative aspects of it. Like there are physical characteristics that are very tangible, and then there are almost like intangible aspects of it too. It's like, well, in my brain, it's like, all right, we're gonna like bring up the general knee extension strength, like we're gonna make their quads stronger, right? But we're also gonna get them better at the skill of squatting. Now, does that really apply to playing soccer? Not necessarily. But I bet it does help them overarchingly as an organism that like is going to be under stress playing soccer, right? Like that's where my brain goes.
I think there's layers to this. So this is I think my opinion is pretty controversial on this. Probably a lot of people are gonna find it controversial. I think there's layers to this game. I think the first layer is if you don't have the capacity, you wouldn't be able to use it, right? Like if a D cell required a knee extensor to fire, to body weight torque in 0.2 seconds. If you don't have that, when that moment happens, something is going to happen, like this baseline.
Yeah.
But then even if you have that, there's still a chance you couldn't use it for whatever reason, right? Yeah. And there's a next step to that, and then the next step on top of that is the psychosocial factors. Those things do influence maybe whatever. Like, I'm just gonna spitball in some random number. Maybe like a 2 Newton-meter per kilogram of torque on your back extensor would be a very safe load on the weeks that you feel really good. But this couple weeks you are just short of sleep. You're stressed out. Now suddenly the same load that was going to be in a training load, now it's in the overloaded though. So I think there's many steps to this. I think my opinions on, like, my controversial opinion is I like biopsychosocial model. I like it as a model. I think it makes sense, but I think people go to the psychosocial a little too quickly. And I think the way I see it is that the biopsychosocial and your interaction with the world, the actual physics part of it is still the reason. That's the frontier of like how some structure can get overloaded,
Yeah.
I think what the psychosocial manipulates is where that threshold is.
Yeah.
For someone who's baseline unhealthy, who's like from a bird's eye view unhealthy person, they're not gonna tolerate too much of that load.
Yeah.
But
I don't really think you're being too controversial here, Hector.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I've had arguments with people about this.
Like,
I've had with a lot of people about this.
I think I like the framework of like that. The layer is like, hey, at some place, because dude, it's like it's clear, like, Michael Jordan was fucking Michael Jordan, and he could play with the flu because he was Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
Now, like, what I think where we should be, where people need to understand that, like, yes, this software is managing the hardware of your body, and if like it is really, really like bogged down, and to be frank, like we can induce a physical response in our body via our thinking, like that's that's like kind of very evident, right? And so like when people are like if you go into a fight and you're like, if you're not gonna beat the guy it's like if it's me versus somebody I've never done Muay Thai and I'm going against somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, I don't, even if I have pretty good like general physical preparation, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. I did this with jiu-jitsu. Like I was stronger than a lot of these people. I literally saw a guy at Costco that I used to do jiu-jitsu with, and like I kind of looked at him and I'm like, not trying to be judgmental, but like he's kind of like, this was like 4 years ago that I was doing it, and he's kind of like not a physical specimen anymore. He's kind of just like and he was pretty in shape, and he just like, he looked like he's added like a little bit of weight, and but that dude could still kick my ass, right? Because his capacity and his skill are high. Now if his shoulder's jacked up and I know that, like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to manipulate that, right? But you're 100% right. Like the physical qualities have to be there for you to utilize them well. And then, and then it is a matter of like, how much is this person's battery run down? Like if you talk to a dude who's like, they're fucking training Muay Thai like 8 times a week, and it's just like, you just are not responding very well to this much volume right now. Let's allocate some of this stuff differently, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, dude, like, it's so true. I think the part where I think a lot of PTs get bogged down, like specifically by biopsychosocial model, is really just the fact that they almost think biopsychosocial as being equal importance. Someone come in to see you with neck pain, back pain, and they're underslept, overstressed, and somehow the first line intervention become manage those life stressors, and you now require them to do huge life changes that are, number one, they're probably not prepared to do when they see a physical therapist, and number two is just like, it doesn't need to happen. There's so much time. You just improve the ability for the neck, back to tolerate force. They can still be the same person that overslept, that underslept, that is, eating donuts and pizza every day, and you'll still get better. As human still is adaptation machine. On top of all of that, I just think there's such layers to truth. Something can be true and inconsequential or very consequential. Like just depends on the different type of person you interact with.
Yeah. But you would overarchingly, like, and I think this is fair. It's like, I'm going to test their back strength, and I'm going to assess the demands of whatever they're doing in their daily life, and I'm going to try to bring up that back strength, right? Like, their ability to move and like, well, and this is one of the things I've been kind of like leaning into, just thinking about like, okay, so like what are the things that are like stressors, right? Load, like purely, like let's say just purely like weight on a movement, or the force like ground reaction force type of thing. The thing I think I've leaned away from for a really long time, and I'm not a very mobile person, but like, increasing your range of motion is a challenging stimulus. Like working on improving your range of motion is a challenging stimulus, right? And
it is.
Sometimes it's like, maybe we should just isolate. I should just quote unquote isolate that a little bit more than like trying to do. This is my segue here. This is my question. It's like the variable. Like what variable should we try to control for? Should it be like weight and range of motion? And I think this is where a lot of people get lost. It's like, should I, if I'm working on back squats, should I just use that as a very generic movement, but like, should I increase the load first, or should I try to get to a certain range of motion? Should it be both? What matters? Like, where do you take that conversation?
So I think it depends on a couple of things. Number one, kind of depends on the structure. It's not like we have like MRI vision, can know exactly what structure is getting hurt.
Yeah.
But sometimes you could get some level of understanding, whether it's a little bit more intra-articular inside a joint or versus a little bit more connective tissue. And I think we'll all agree on if it's something more intra-articular, like say for back pain, we're probably a little bit more conservative compared to if it's someone's Achilles tendon, right? We're probably a lot more aggressive with that.
Yeah.
So I think structure does matter a little bit. And two is I never like to use compound movement as my movement of loading, because I think the chance of someone, because I think end of the day it's like, okay, back squat, load the back, depends on how they do it.
Yeah.
Right. Depends on how much is loading the back and how much they're leaning forward, how much where's the setup is, and that's very individual basis.
Yeah.
And they could change that movement strategy quite literally from day to day.
Yeah. Sure.
It very much could be like Monday they're, especially someone who's like not super skilled. Monday they're loading a little bit more like a low bar squat. Tuesday they're a little bit more loading like a high bar squat. Now suddenly it's the same movement, the same weight with the same range of motion, but you're loading a complete different level arm. So I always like to use isolated movement. For back, for example, like some sort of movement I can isolate at the hip and just load the erectors, right? Like like a Roman chair back extension. I put the seat so high they couldn't even bend their hip at all. Or I like to use a modified Jefferson curl where I have them like back against a wall with the feet walked all the way forward, so like the hip is literally stuck to the wall. Now they have to move through the back. I like to use more isolated lift. I like to be really conservative with the range of motion. I think that's one thing I kind of lean more into is be conservative with range of motion in the beginning. I think we don't. Sometimes I don't fully appreciate how much quote unquote like load or compression force is being placed on a joint, on a body part, just from the range of motion, even at really, really light load. And I think we hear those stories all the time. Someone can rack pull 400 pounds, but you ask them to bend over and pick up a pencil.
Yeah.
Now suddenly they're like,
feel like shit.
I feel like shit. So
yeah. That's a good point. I think you're like you also just kind of isolated the variable of like, well, let's take other joints out of this for a second, and like, let's see if we can, because you do want to. This is always the thing I kind of go back and forth too, is like, how specific do I need to get to the body part, versus how much do I just help the human overarchingly like feel better, right? Like,
right.
And I think it's you alluded to this earlier too. It's like, well, there's probably some shit that you can, even if this hurts, you can still train hard, right? And like that kind of helps the overarching human feel better. Right, and push, which like brings me to like we were talking in the DM. So like, okay, so kindness is something you resonate with, right? But like,
yeah.
Just like talk to me about a little bit about just like why helping people physically, why helping people in general is something that you're drawn to, and like what do you enjoy about like this profession and working with humans? Because like, let's be honest, working with humans is also hard. Right?
Yeah, it is. I think as I'm getting older, religion and spirituality speaks to me a lot more. Like I grew up in communist China. We don't do religions, so I never did religions. And I mean, we always have guidelines of principles and philosophies that are religion-like that we follow. But religion was never a big part of my life. But I got exposed to Buddhism through one of my best friends in college, and idea of Buddhism really resonate with me. The idea of to understand human experience really resonate with me, and even in the experience of pain, I think we're talking about earlier, I think the sensations of pain and the suffering of pain can be almost two different things. And
Yeah.
I'm fully aware that a lot of time my job as a physical therapist is not just to manage the sensation of pain, but also the suffering of pain.
Hmm.
Um, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. Really trying to understand what it feels like to be another person who's in pain, and it just, I guess it just really speaks to me. I think about, like, a lot of people think about Buddhism as, just like meditating and being monks, but I really think about, my definition of being Buddhism is trying to it's on the baseline understanding that um, the noble truths of there is suffering, and living life is suffering. There's end to the suffering, and the end to the suffering is the eightfold path, and part, eightfold path is just, this, in talk about eightfold path, it's basically breaks down into good speech, good intention, good mindfulness, good livelihood, good actions, and you really just trying to live your life being a good person. um, and I think just being in PT helping people check a lot of those boxes,
Hmm.
and and I want to be super transparent. It's not just like, I'm such an altruistic guy, because I think two things can be true. I do this for other people, I also do it for myself.
Oh yeah.
um, like,
Yeah.
when I'm more here with, think good things, have good speech, do good actions, help other people, I live a better life.
Yeah.
I'm just having better subjective experience, and even, some psychology findings that you're kind of like, you're we only see and hear what we pay attention to, and if
Yeah.
I pay attention to, quote unquote, the good things, I get, I see and hear those things too. So it's really for other people and for myself. And I try to walk this line of, like, I like to be really polarized in the way that when I'm going down with the physics objective, I go really deep in nothing but physics and objective. But when I go down this, like, path of subjective experience, I think, I like to go really deep into what it really feels like to be a human. And this kind of push and pull, um, it's really interesting to me. It's just a good practice I live my life on, and I I like to think myself as, I do good work, and I make good impact, and that makes my existence more meaningful in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I mean, like, I'm someone that is like struggled with like meaning and suffering, like, and even religion. Like, I grew up Catholic,
Right.
and I like. It's not that I appreciate aspects of like my Catholic upbringing and stuff, but also just like, um, like this stuff is so individual. Like, it's we all should like kind of figure out like what's meaningful, but we also live amongst a culture, and there are
Right.
pressures associated with like a society, and like a lot of there's overarching like tenets that like Christianity, Buddhism, like Hinduism, like there's it's
Right.
people need guidance, right? And we need
Yes.
to reflect, and we need to like manage the let's say like animalistic aspects of us. Otherwise, we're like gonna be, we wouldn't function in a society,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
But also beyond just straight up rules, like you have to kind of cultivate like cultivating, like we know how to behave, and I think this is one of the things that like social media kind of f's up, like it is still like anonymous, right? And it's like it's not like you're in a room having a beer with somebody talking about a topic of debate,
Yeah.
right? You're just like,
Yeah.
hey, this guy's wrong, right? And I like,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? But man, even just helping people. Like, I like to help people. It's also hard. Like, it's people, the remote world. I honestly, dude, I believe like rehab, a lot of it should be like remote, right? Like, I mean, not to say you don't have inter-person touch points, but like, I don't need to see people 3 times a week. Like,
Right.
people need to go to a gym, right? They
Yep.
need guidance on what to do. They need good programming, and then they need like accountability to help them just do the stuff that is like you mentioned. Like, if somebody comes into you and they have back pain, and your first mode of treatment is like, well, and I don't think we should have these discussions, but it should still be like, let's assess the physical nature of this, and then let's help you manage your sleep or XYZ if we can, right? But like, you're right, people can't just overhaul their life like that, so you have to like help them do things that matter over time, and a lot of that is like, it's remote, right? It's guidance, programming, that type of stuff, and it's interaction like asynchronously. But that also leaves, like, when I'm in a room with somebody, like that's what you almost get addicted to as a PT, when you like get good, you're like working with people and they understand it and you can immediately make an intervention or XYZ. But when it's like, yeah, they just have to execute the program, it's hard, and my ego likes it when people succeed, but my ego hates it when people are struggling, right? And it's like, all right, what do I got to do here? And sometimes the answer is, I don't have to do anything right here. I can't do anything. I just have to keep doing my job, and take right action and be supportive. And sometimes it's just not intervening. Like, that's my hardest part. Is like, actually, like, we're not going to change anything. Like, let's just leave it the same for a little bit and let you actually adapt to what we're trying to do, right? Which is hard.
Does it hurt a little bit? Is like, let's change nothing and try it again next week.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it's hard, but no, I appreciate your take there, and I think like, you just need principles. Like, you need guiding principles, and like, I don't know. I would say like I was definitely a nice guy, and before I started my business, probably definitely a people pleaser. But like, being kind is not the same as being nice. Like, being kind is like being like, this is what we need to do, and these are my boundaries as well as a human being. And also, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to look at it as objectively I can and tell you the truth, even if that pisses you off. Because that's the other thing. That sometimes, like, people, we kind of talked about this earlier. There's people who, they tell people what they want to hear so that they can get their way. When it's like, we just need to talk about what actually needs to happen here. Like, diet's a classic example of this. So much of the diet industry is like, you can do whatever you want if you follow my system. And it's like, no, that shit ain't going to work. Like, you're going to have to figure out how to eat appropriately if you want to, build muscle, like lose fat, and, have energy. Like, there's just fucking guiding principles that you have to subscribe to some extent, right?
Right.
But like, people get the emotional side of it, and charlatans basically like make it so that, yeah, you can do, energy balance isn't a thing type of thing, right? It's like, no, like, that's not gonna fucking help, right? So
yeah, dude, I go back and forth on it. I like, in an ideal world, it would be nice if we're all just rational beings and act based on logic, but nobody does that. I don't do it, you don't do it, nobody else does it. I think there's like definitely aspect in my life I'm following guidance that's just completely not true, and I think we're so immersed in this world of like progressive overload, PT training. I think sometimes kind of like, even it's hard for me to see what it feels like from outside looking in, and when you truly have no knowledge in this. Like, if I have this, I even think about if I, like, I know nothing about plumbing, but if I need to like whatever fix like a pipe thing, like, who am I going to listen to? Obviously, the guy with the biggest YouTube platform.
It's true, right?
And you'll be saying, like, oh, follow my system. It's like simple ABC. And I was like, I'm just going to deal with this one time. I don't want to ever think about this again.
Yeah. Dude, that's a good point.
Yeah, there's a chance you might actually help me there. And you can't make the argument. It's like, I'm not taking full advantage of learning plumbing knowledge at all. But
like, Squat, Aaron, that guy's probably a really fucking nice guy. Like, like, I think he is, I hate how he goes about doing some shit? Yeah, but I do. He got a good brand, and he, it's just like, oh man, there's just things about it that I do have to balance out, like, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy, right? And or do I want to just stay in my own lane? Most of it's just stay in my own lane, because when you stay in your own lane, like, good shit happens, right? And and then people ask me about some of that stuff sometimes. I'm like, it's like you mentioned earlier. It's like, it's just the application. It's just the explanation. It's not that that thing is bad or X, Y, Z, and or that he says you shouldn't do it. It's just like, most of these debates about whether or not you should fricking do a Jefferson curl or X, Y, Z, they're just fucking terrible debates, because it's like, nobody is saying YOLO them with 400 pounds when you haven't ever freaking done them, right? Like,
right.
And also just the evidence being attributed to why you shouldn't is frankly not good, right? So it's just, what are we talking about, right?
Yeah, man, I agree to all that,
dude. I appreciate your time. This is like, honestly, this went so fast, and I kind of want to keep fucking asking you questions. But
you did go really fast.
I want to respect your time. Yeah, like, honestly, we'll have to do a part 2, and we'll talk just a little bit more specifics of training, and like,
I want to get more.
But where can people find you, Hector?
So on Instagram is where it's where I'm most active. Hector.WangPhysio. I'm starting a YouTube channel, but that won't be here or there for the next month or so. I'm really, really responsive on Instagram, reply to every messages, and I try to walk the walk, like I said, spread a good impact. So, if anyone have ever questions they want to talk to me about, I'm very happy to just chat.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And I think people do too. Yeah, like, you responded to my message very quickly. It was awesome. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
But what are you training for right now? What's the goal of your YouTube channel, if I can ask you that? And then what are you training for right now for yourself?
So, dude, I have the ideas for YouTube channel. I just, I think about what Squat U, what, some of those accounts. I think about how not true some of the contents are and how successful they are, and I think audience and consumer of this space deserve something better, deserve something that's a little bit more. No, I don't like to use the words evidence-based or science-based. I think it gets butchered, but science-informed and almost in some way like common sense-based training rehab device. That's what I wanted my YouTube to be, just like basic understanding. Here's a force of the sporting task, and here's the exercise you can do to reintroduce that force in your training. And it's probably going to be mainly Muay Thai combat sports based, just because that's what I love. Right now, I'm coming out of, I spent the last 3 years of my life trying to get really competitive in Muay Thai and get a last win, and I kind of got it out of my system. Right now, I'm more interested in just lifting, sprinting, and jumping. And to be totally honest with you, I've never... So the only time I've done a structured training program was when I was doing ollie lifting in 2022. Since then, I have not been on a structured program, and I'm finally getting back on it now. I never treated, because I spent so much of my time in Muay Thai, I never treated like training, like weight room and some physical capacity so seriously. Now that I'm very, very, very interested to see what my body is capable of. Specifically, vertical jump, broad jump, a mile time, and probably some pretty heavy squat, bench, and deadlift. Just some basic things. I want to see just how far I can push that.
Dude, that sounds like a pretty fun program. A pretty fun, dude, I'm having a lot of fun. That's part of why I'm pissed off, because my Olympic lifts have been feeling like the best they've felt in a long time. And then it's like, shit, my hips are getting pissy. But it makes also sense, because I'm doing a lot more squatting than I've been in a long time, right? And but dude, sprinting is also fun. Also, sprinting, I regret just not taking advantage of my youth and capitalizing on how much I was just in. I would the workload that I could handle,
right,
kid,
yeah.
Right? Because it's damn, and I just didn't think I could get fast, and now I'm damn, it's just really yes, there's but it's really just you got to sprint. You got to freaking
Yeah,
sprint.
you just never give yourself a fair chance
Yeah,
to
right?
actually get fast.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
God, I just like thought I was a slow kid, and it's like, yeah, you were, but like you could have gotten faster. You just ran 5 miles instead of like going to the field and sprinting, right?
Oh gosh, I relate to that so hard.
Yeah, dude, we should have went there. We
Yeah.
can go down this rabbit hole
Yeah.
at a later date, but dude, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'll get this up soon. I'll tag your well, if you have your YouTube link, let me know it, and I'll tag your Instagram, and then we'll have you back for round 2 in the not too distant future, man.
Dude, I'll love to. What a fun conversation. I like everything we're getting into. I think there's a lot of things about specific training we just never really even get to.
It's too hard to talk about. It's too easy to talk about the generalities and like the frustrations to like talk about like specifics and stuff like that. But we'll get part 2
yes.
due soon. So, all right, buddy. Thanks so much, everybody.
Right.
Peace.
Thank you. Yes.